The Fragrance of the Night, Jasmine, copyright 2026, Rajesh Sahae, Bestfeel Books. Sometimes, a place carries a fragrance that stays in your memory long after you leave. For Aman, that fragrance was the scent of Night Jasmine. It was early summer when Aman arrived at Moonidge Cottage, a quiet guest house resting on the slope of a hill, the kind of place where people came when they wanted silence. Aman had been struggling to finish his novel for months. Words refused to come. Every sentence felt heavy. So he left the city and came to this small hillside retreat, hoping the quiet would help him think. The caretaker, an elderly man named Gopal, welcomed him with a gentle smile and handed him the key. "Room number 3, he said. "You will like this room. The breeze from the garden comes straight through the window." Aman climbed the wooden staircase and opened the door. The room was simple but peaceful. White curtains, a wooden desk, a lamp, and a large window looking out toward the garden. And in the middle of that garden stood a tall, night jasmine tree. That evening, as darkness slowly settled over the hills, the tiny white flowers began releasing their fragrance, the air filled with a delicate sweetness. Aman stepped outside onto the veranda and breathed deeply. For the first time in many weeks, his mind felt calm. Later that night, while he sat writing at the desk, he heard a soft sound, footsteps, very light, almost like someone walking slowly along the veranda. Aman opened the door and stepped outside. A woman stood near the railing, looking toward the dark valley below. Her hair moved gently in the night breeze. She turned when she heard him.
"Oh, I hope I didn't disturb you."
Her voice was calm, almost musical. "Not at all," Aman replied. For a moment they simply stood there. Then she smiled slightly.
"My name is Leela."
She added, "Aman." From that night onward, they met often on the veranda. Sometimes they talked about books, sometimes about writing and how difficult it could be to finish a story. Leela had a gentle way of speaking. She often paused between sentences, as if she enjoyed letting silence breathe. One evening she said something Aman remembered clearly.
"Stories are strange things. Sometimes we think we are writing them, but in truth, the story is writing us."
Aman laughed. "That sounds like something a writer says when they are stuck." She smiled.
"Maybe."
Over the next few nights, their conversations grew longer. They would sit under the jasmine tree while the cool night breeze moved softly through the leaves. Fireflies flickered in the garden like tiny floating stars. One night, Aman confessed something. "I came here because I can't finish my novel." Leela looked at him thoughtfully. "Then perhaps," she said gently.
"Looks like you are trying too hard to control the ending."
"What do you mean?"
"Sometimes, the ending arrives only when we stop searching for it."
Aman thought about that for a moment. "Did you finish your story?" he asked. Leela smiled faintly.
"Almost."
3 days later, Aman finally wrote the last chapter of his novel. The words flowed easily, almost effortlessly. For the first time in months, he felt relief. He hurried outside onto the veranda, but Leela was not there. He waited. Midnight passed. The fragrance of jasmine filled the air, but she never came. The next morning, Aman asked the caretaker casually, "Gopalji, the lady staying next door, Leela, has she checked out?" The old man looked confused. "Lady?" "Yes, Leela." Gopal shook his head slowly. "Sir, That room has been empty for many months. Aman laughed. No, I've been meeting her every night. The caretaker's expression changed, but he said nothing more. Later that afternoon, Aman went to the small office near the reception. The manager, Mr. Mehta, was sitting behind a wooden desk. Sir, Aman said politely, could I see the guest register from last year? Mehta looked surprised. Is there any problem with your stay? No, nothing like that. I'm just curious about someone who stayed here earlier. The manager hesitated for a moment. Then he brought out a thick register. Aman slowly turned the pages. Names, dates, cities, families, travelers, couples. Then suddenly he saw it. Written clearly in blue ink. Leela Deshpande, Pune check-in date, April 2021. Aman's heart skipped slightly. Who was she? He asked quietly. The manager leaned back in his chair. For a few seconds he remained silent. Then he spoke slowly. She came here during the second wave of COVID. She said she wanted isolation to finish writing her book. At first, everything was fine. But after a few days, she developed symptoms. Aman listened carefully. The doctor advised strict quarantine, the manager continued. No one was allowed to enter the room. Food and medicines were passed through the small opening of the door. Sometimes we would leave the tray outside and knock, then step away. Aman felt a strange heaviness inside his chest. She was alone? He asked. Yes, the manager nodded. She didn't want to worry her parents in Pune. She kept saying she would recover, but the infection became severe. The manager looked down at the table. One morning she didn't answer when we knocked. Aman closed the register slowly. And the jasmine tree? He asked quietly. The manager sighed. She used to sit under that tree in the evenings when she first arrived. She loved the fragrance. That evening, Aman sat alone on the veranda. The night jasmine tree was blooming again. The fragrance drifted gently through the air. He remembered the way Leela had smiled, the way she spoke about unfinished stories, the way the breeze moved through her hair. A strange thought came to his mind. What if her story had remained unfinished? 2 weeks later, Aman traveled to Pune. The address from the register led him to a quiet residential neighborhood. A modest house with a small garden. He hesitated before ringing the bell. An elderly couple opened the door. When Aman mentioned Leela's name, their eyes softened immediately. She was our daughter, her mother said. Aman explained that he had been staying at Moonidge Cottage. For a moment the room fell silent. Then her father brought out a framed photograph. Aman's heart stopped for a second. It was her. The same calm smile, the same thoughtful eyes. She loved writing, her mother said quietly. She went to that cottage to finish her novel. Aman asked softly, did she complete it? Her father nodded slowly. Yes. The manuscript arrived by courier a week before she passed away. He handed Aman a printed copy of the book. Aman opened the first page. The title read, The Fragrance of the Night Jasmine. His hands trembled slightly. He turned the page. On the dedication page were the words, To the stranger who may one day finish the story I could not. That night, back in his hotel room in Pune, Aman sat quietly with the manuscript beside him. Outside the window, the warm night breeze carried a faint floral fragrance. For a moment he closed his eyes, and in that quiet space between memory and imagination, he could almost hear Leela's gentle voice again. Some stories, she had said, are written long after we think they are over. Aman smiled softly because now he knew her story was not unfinished after all. It had simply been waiting for someone to continue writing it. Aman turned the final page slowly. The last line of the manuscript read, "One day a writer will stay in the same room. He will smell the jasmine, and he will finally understand the ending I could never write." Aman looked out of the window. The night breeze carried the same delicate fragrance of jasmine, and for the first time he realized something that made him smile quietly. Leela had finished her story. He had simply walked into its last chapter.
Bestfeel Books, feel more. Bestfeel Books, feel more.